Hey there, Colonials. Welcome back to another edition of Quickly Colonial. I just want to take a few minutes here at the beginning to welcome you. If you're new or if you haven't seen us for a while, welcome and thank you. I'd encourage you to like and subscribe and share these videos so that more people can join in and have the same fun that we have together. I love bringing you this history. This is my passion. And so with that, today I have something, it's never happened before. The 250th anniversary of something big. Now, last night, 250 years ago, a letter came to British General Thomas Gage, and that was with instructions to quell or stop the rebellion, get rid of it. And so with that, he set things in motion. He started to send soldiers in motion. But the Americans, in Boston especially, they had already thought to themselves and got together and talked in groups and said, you know what, we need to be on the watch. We need to see what these guys are doing, where they're moving to, what their plans are, anything like that. And so there was an entire spy network of individuals and friends that would get together and say, hey, we need to watch these guys over here. We need to see what they're doing. And that is exactly what happened today, 250 years ago. Well, especially tonight, 250 years ago. There was a fellow by the name of Joseph Warren, and we know him from history. He was one of the big guys, right? All right. Now, he had a friend named Paul Revere and a couple other friends in the neighborhood that were getting together and saying, hey, we need to watch these guys and see what they're up to. They had already set plans in motion. If you hear anything, send word to this guy. And if you see anything, send word to this guy. And so they started to get the word out. We always hear the story of Paul Revere and his midnight ride, but that actually, it didn't gain any fanfare in history until 1861 with Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem, The Midnight Run of Paul Revere. But Paul Revere wasn't the only guy to make that midnight run. There were a ton of them, dozens that we can think of that had a part in sending the word out. But the big one, the big name that goes there is always Paul Revere. That's probably because he was a big part of this network of guys and kind of like part of the leadership of these guys getting together. But he wasn't the only one on that fateful night. We know for sure of three. Now, three by name. The first one, so Joseph Warren, he sends his first word out. And that was, he called for a guy named William Dawes. Now, William Dawes is in the neighborhood, and he was supposed to take the land route out of Boston and alert the people of Roxbury, Cambridge, and Minnetonka, which later became the town of Arlington. On his way to Lexington to warn Sam Adams and John Hancock, because remember, Sam Adams and John Hancock, they were part of those guys that signed the Declaration of Independence, right? And Gage was to quell the rebellion. So these guys had a death sentence. Their name was on the line, and if they got caught, they were in big trouble. And so William Dawes was sent especially to these neighboring towns out of Boston to take the land route to go warn those guys, hey, you got to get out of Dodge, right? Okay? Now, the second guy, about a half hour later, Joseph Warren calls for Paul Revere. Paul Revere, this is insane. To think about the speed that he was moving at. He covered 13 miles in less than 2 hours. And he was supposed to go the water route. He was supposed to cross the Charles River and then make his way on to Lexington. And there were some small little towns and inlets and neighborhoods that he was supposed to go door to door. Hey, they're on their way. And that famous phrase made by Longfellow that the British were coming, that's really not what he said. He would go around and bang on people's doors and ring church bells and make the alarm and sound the alarm and blow bugles and everything else in all these neighborhoods. And he was saying, the regulars are coming out. The regulars are coming out, not the British are coming. But you know what? It's been set in stone. It's been set in history. So that's where we'll take it as. The British are coming. So The third one was Samuel Prescott, and we'll get to Sam Prescott in just a minute. So William Dawes, Paul Revere, they make their way, right? Okay, William Dawes, he goes around and he gets to the places he's supposed to be, and he makes it to Lexington. And he's waiting, and he's waiting. Paul Revere takes the water route, and he goes, and he crosses the Charles River and then on to Lexington, and he's making these announcements and shouting the whole way, making sure that everybody knows. Both William Dawes and Paul Revere make it to Lexington, and they kind of sit still for a little while. They go into a local pub. By this time, it's about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and they sit tight for a while, right? What should we do? What should we do? And they finally get the idea, as they're talking with each other and with other people in the pub, you know what? The British are probably going to come for the ammunition stores, the cannon, the black powder, the round balls, the lead, everything that they can find. There's an ammunition storehouse in Concord, right? So that's where they believe that the British are going to come to. So they decide to make their way to Concord. On the road there, they meet up with Sam Prescott. Now, Samuel Prescott was a local doctor. He was a young guy, right? And it just so happened he was traveling alone on this road at 11 o'clock at night because he had just come back from visiting his fiancée. And so he's on the road, and he says, you know what? Yeah, hey guys, how you doing? I'll help you out. So the three of them make their way to Concord. Well, on the road, they get busted. They get caught by British regulars. And at first, they're like, okay, let's sit still, and there's only a few of them. We can take them. Well, then more of them start to come out, and they make a break for it. They make a run for it. And one guy goes this way, one guy goes this way, and another guy goes the other way. So William Dawes, he goes to the left. Paul Revere goes to the right. And Sam Prescott, he takes off through the woods. So this is what happened to each one of them. Paul Revere, he gets caught, and he gets held up. And these British guys, they are high on their hog because they caught the infamous Paul Revere. What are we going to do with him? Blah, 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 all this stuff. So they decide they're going to take him as prisoner. So they're holding on to him. William Dawes, he gets to a certain point, and he takes off, and he says, you know what? I'll make my way back to Lexington. Sam Prescott, this local doctor that they met on the road, he's the only one to actually make it to Concord to tell everybody what's going on. And he doesn't get the credit for it. Paul Revere does. Sam Prescott, Samuel Prescott, remember that name. Now, Paul Revere, they're on their way. He's a prisoner of war now. He's hog-tied or hand-tied, and he's on horseback, and he's riding along with these British regulars. And they're making their way to Lexington. And they decide, you know what, we need to travel faster, and we can probably travel faster without any prisoners. So they let him go. They let him go. The infamous Paul Revere. They let him go, and he travels on foot. He makes his way all the way to Lexington before they do, and he meets up with Sam Adams and John Hancock. Sam Adams and John Hancock decide that they are going to make the break for Philadelphia. And they say to Paul Revere, hey, can you run back to that pub? I have a trunk of supplies there, of my personal stuff. Can you run into that pub and grab that for me? And so that's what Paul Revere does. Sam Prescott, that night that he makes this midnight run with these guys, whenever they get startled by the British and he takes off through the woods, he loses his pocket watch, and then he falls off his horse, and his horse takes off. So he makes his way on foot all the way to Concord to warn everybody. He's the only one to make it. That's impressive. Paul Revere is with Sam Adams, John Hancock. They meet back together. Sam Adams and John Hancock, they leave for Philadelphia, and Paul Revere, he heads back home. So there you have it, the story of the famous midnight run of Paul Revere and the other two guys that really don't get too much credit. And that's all because of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem in 1861. Now, there is a group called Revolution 250. I'd encourage you to check them out. They have a website and all kinds of plans for celebrating all the little things that lead up to the 250th anniversary of the 4th of July and the Declaration of Independence, right? And with that, they are encouraging everybody all over the country, tonight especially, to light 2 lamps. Remember, it was Robert Newman and John Pulling. They were in charge of the church, the Old North Church. Robert Newman was a sexton, or the church caretaker. He took care of things, made sure the property was kept up. And John Pulling was a vestryman. He was on the church council. Those were the 2 guys responsible for sending the signal to Paul Revere. 1 lamp if the British were coming by land, 2 lamps if they were coming by sea. And so Revolution 250 is encouraging everybody, and so am I, encouraging everybody to light 2 lamps tonight. The British came by sea. Light those 2 lamps and put them in the window. Some people are doing it tonight only, and then there's some people that are doing it all through the month of April. It's a wonderful way to remember these 3 guys, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, and our independence that came shortly after. So with that, my dear Colonials, let's light our lamps. 1 if by land, and 2 if by sea. It's wonderful to be with you. On to revolution. The British are coming. We'll see you next time. Cheers.